Relations between Iran and Saudi Arabia have been quite tense throughout their history. Between the countries, there are a number of disputes and contradictions that have evolved over the years. Saudi Arabia is a young country. If you compare it to Iran, and within a short space of time, it's become one of the greatest powers in the Middle East, all thanks to liquid gold and the blessings of the United States.
We protect Saudi Arabia. Would you say they're rich? And I love the king, King Solomon, but I said, King, we're protecting you. You might not be there for 2 weeks without us. You have to pay for your military.
Iran and Saudi Arabia profess different versions of Islam. The countries have long-standing scores and territorial disputes in the Persian Gulf. Also to add, the Saudis hate it when the Persian Gulf is referred to as Persian. They prefer Arab Gulf. Iran and Saudi Arabia have spheres of influence in other countries in the region, from Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and of course, who can forget, the war in Yemen. The war in Yemen is probably the first direct proxy between Iran and Arab countries of the Gulf. Iran has never been happy with Saudi Arabia. It accuses Saudi Arabia of promoting Wahhabi terrorism and categorically condemns the persecution of Shia Muslims living in the Saudi provinces of Qatif and Najran. Tensions between the countries have been building since the early 2000s, and the Americans have been supporting the Saudi side. Things took a nasty turn for both the nations in January 2016 when the Saudi regime decided to execute a prominent Shia cleric, Nimr al-Nimr, on charges of spying for Iran. The execution provoked strong condemnation in Iranian society, which led to the destruction of the Saudi embassy in Tehran and the severing of diplomatic ties between the two countries.
در مسئله یمن بنده یه حرف نصیحت آمیزی به آقایان سعودی دارم که این از روی نصیحت واقعا خیرخواهی است. چرا جنگی را که یقین دارید در او پیروز نمیشید ادامه میدید؟ اصلا احتمال پیروزی سعودی ها در جنگ یمن هست؟ احتمالش هم نیست. با این همتی که مردم یمن دارن، با این شجاعتی که رهبرانشون دارن نشون میدن، با این ابتکار عملی که در بخش‌های مختلف دارن، احتمال پیروزی وجود نداره. خب جنگی که در اون احتمال پیروزی وجود نداره چرا ادامه پیدا میکنه؟ یه راهی پیدا کنید خودتون رو خارج کنید از این جنگ.
Over the years, Iran and Saudi Arabia entered a sort of a cold war. However, this tension right now is fading. Yes, it's gradually fading because Saudi Arabia right now has a problematic relationship with the United States. With the coming of power of President Sleepy Joe Biden, who has repeatedly condemned the Saudi authorities for violating human rights, a political crisis has now begun to brew between Saudi Arabia and the United States. This has naturally led to the fact that the Saudi authorities began to actively strengthen their relation with China. It became known about the plans of the Saudi authorities to end the war in Yemen. Let's be honest, the war isn't sustainable anymore. Saudi used all the tricks they could, even hired Wahhabi Daesh out there, but they still couldn't win against the Houthis. And today, Saudi Arabia is negotiating with Iran. They are seeking to resume diplomatic relations. Representatives of the two countries held 5 rounds of talks in third countries. The last round took place last month in Baghdad, and both sides have said that it was these negotiations that progress was finally made on a number of difficult issues. And now we're hearing that Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan and his Iranian counterpart Hossain Amir Abdullahian are to meet in Iraq in the near future. the next meeting is extremely important, and it should end the diplomatic crisis between the two countries. The date of the meeting hasn't been announced, but a number of Arab journalists suggest that the meeting will discuss the division of spheres of influence between Iran and Saudi Arabia in Yemen, as well as the resumption of the work of the embassies of the two countries. Both sides may agree on cooperation against the backdrop of a mutual decline in confidence in the United States and its policy in the Middle East. For America, the great Satan, diplomatic ties between Iran and Saudi Arabia will be seen as a huge defeat and a serious blow to the collective West, who took advantage of the animosity between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Diplomatic ties between Iran and Saudi will seriously weaken the stranglehold of political isolation thrown over Iran. Previously, the Saudi regime played the role of the main counterbalance to Iran in the region, but now the Americans are at risk of losing this lever of pressure on Iran. Also, I know some of you think Saudi Arabia has secret ties to Israel. I think the truth is they do have some sort of ties, but these guys are actually quite cautious of Israel. I say this because in Palestine everything boils down to Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Israelis want control over the entire mosque and build their third temple. However, the Saudis want control over it too, so they can claim to be the custodians of the three holy mosques, not just two in Mecca and Medina. But Israel will never accept Saudi control over Al-Aqsa. The Jordanians have custodianship of Al-Aqsa, and the Israelis aren't too happy about that. So everything isn't cushy between Israel and Saudi Arabia. That's the truth, and this is the very reason why they haven't openly normalized ties under the Abraham Accords.
בזמן שישראל לאחרונה ניתצו כמה עניינים. מה שרואה עוד, וגם משהו שעדיין משאיר ליבו. אז הייתה משהו במה ידיעתו.
עושים.
הכנראה שהיא מספיק, כאילו שהיום כבר כמה שעות בגיל עדיין ליבו. אבל יש עוד כמה שעות, אבל יש להשתדל גם היום, ובשורות טובות.
Personally, my advice to the Saudis is to join the Iranian camp and oppose the American initiative to bring Arab countries closer to Israel. Israel is a foreign entity, an imperialist satellite state of the United States. A joint agreement between Iran and the Saudis could convince other Arab powers, like Morocco, not to go along with Israel and the US on this so-called Arab-Israeli peace initiative and the silly Abraham Accords, which was introduced under Donald Trump. My friends, the world is sick and tired of disputes, especially in the East. I think an agreement between Iran and Saudi Arabia will definitely benefit the entire Arab world, as it will significantly reduce the likelihood of a full-scale war between the two key countries in the region. No matter what you think right now, whether pro-Iran or pro-Saudi, the biggest blessing would be if Saudi and Iran normalize ties and kick the United States out of the region. Let's look forward to the day when the United States is not seen outside of their borders. Down with America. And I mean the government, not the people.
Very violent attack.
یه راهی پیدا کنید خودتون رو خارج کنید از این جنگ.